Cool. So,
You have
we
to
say, was that?
the windows behind you don't great, but anyway.
Maybe you go off to the side.
Yeah.
So, the head, using the head as a weapon has its limitations. It's very good when it works, but small things like if they're turned and they've given you the back of their head or the top of their head, there's not so much incentive to move, even with the push kind of head movement. And so what I'm starting to appreciate a lot more now, revisiting this fending thing, is the power of that and using that to open up the gap. So rather than just have it as a prevention to stop people closing the gap on you and getting into extreme close quarters, it's actually also very good for getting out of extreme close quarters and getting into this preferred range. And this is what me and Martin have been working on a lot lately, which has sort of made me realise this. So what we'll look at is some various positions that you can find yourself in, and then a handful of ways in which you can get the arm into a place where you can do this fending. And something I should have mentioned before, if I get Martin out here again, is that, let's lose this just in case, you don't want to be using the forearm on the collarbone thing, like if you think of this as kind of as a technique or a weapon, if you will. You don't want to be doing it on the inside like that. Remember what I was saying about being on the outside? So it's always going across the body. So if the situation requires me to be on this side of his neck, for example, I don't want to use this arm for that, because the moment I do this, remember what I said before about what neurologically your body wants to do next? It wants to do this. It doesn't actually really want to do that so much. Whereas if I'm here, there's nothing to pull it. So I won't default. And again, this is really about stopping you from doing stupid shit in a fight. Because I love the way you coughed right when I said shit. You're like perfect censoring. So it's to stop you from defaulting to something which is tactically not very good in a situation. So always on this side. So if you, there's three sort of basic ways that the hand is going to find its way in there at extreme close quarters. So if you bear hug me in some way, yeah. So we're here, and there's combinations of this. So my arm could have been in there, or it could have been there, and his arm could have been up here, or it could have been on there, on the arm where it was before. Yeah. So let's just do where we was at there. So from here, this is kind of the perfect range for the headbutt, which we just looked at. So I'd use the head. Maybe that's not working, or maybe if you tuck your head right on the other side of my body, there we go, there's no headbutt happening here now. Yeah? So what do I have? I have the knee that we looked at before, groin or inner thigh. Inner thigh is a great one because the groin is really just about pain, and it might have a strong reaction from him moving his hips back, good, not too bad. But the good thing with the inner thigh is if you hit that shit hard enough, it disrupts his base. Like if I do if you follow through a little bit as well, sometimes you can shift that foot out and then something opens up here. Now I can use my hand to go back to this. So you tuck your head down there again. So from here, something that can help me get out of this situation is the fending, is to get into that position. And the process of trying to make it happen makes it happen, if that makes sense. So in this case, from this particular position, I don't want to use this arm because I don't really have access to that side of his neck, remember? So I could do that and push away maybe, but look what I'm doing now, he's on the inside of my forearm, what we're trying to avoid. It sounds all a bit technical and complicated, but you can really train this into your nervous system so that you don't want to do that in a high threat scenario. So what I'm going to use instead is my other arm to sneak it up through here, and here I am. Yeah? So he's got me clinched up like this, and again, go back to the knees by the way, maybe he's just really sort of canny, and every time I go to throw the knee, he moves, and he's just, fuck it, yeah? So maybe he's just got that wrestling attribute. But if I can sneak this hand up here, which in this case I can quite easily, sneak it up, maybe I need to snake it up through there. Once I'm here, I can break this. I really can, because there's the pain inducement element, and there's also just the strength aspect of it as well. We're working with quite strong muscles here. So from here, going back to what I touched on earlier, what I don't want to do, does anyone want to see that from the other side? So once I've snuck this hand, and put your head right on the other side so I can't headbutt you, because if I have the head, I'll hit it, you know? Once I've snuck this arm through, let's turn around again, what I don't want to do is now get into the mind of, I'm going to push him away, yeah? Because if it's strength versus strength, I'm going to lose, especially against Martin, because he's strong as fuck. But if I instead just say to myself, so clinch me up again, I'm just going to straighten my arm out, yeah, it works. And even if it doesn't, if his arms don't fly open, because he's quite tenacious like that, he's still in a shit position. And now I'm in a place for my elbows, maybe a head from here where I open up and then, you know, I've broken through, yeah? So let's look at this position first of all. They all get a bit complicated. Don't worry about left and right. But what I want you to do is clinch your opponent up and your partner up in such a way that your arm is around their body and one arm, in fact it doesn't even need to be there, you could even be like this, yeah? So from here, you're clinched up and you're going to want to sneak that hand through, so that I can straighten out. Again, the Aikido fingers, beams of light and chi coming out of your fingers. And then just experiment with breaking that open and then using a different weapon from there. So I'm going to give you another little technique here as well. If he's really clinched up, like really tight, so from here, it might be so close, you might be squeezing chest to chest so much that I can't, but your head's available now, yeah? So, so it's all very specific. Let's just say it's so tight that I can't squeeze my arm, there's no gap for me to get the arm through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a gap, just a moment in time, with another very strong, biomechanically strong movement, and that is this shucking movement or bumping movement with the shoulder. So it will look something like this, open up, and then I can, whoop, it's in, good, now I can continue from there. So I'll just show you what I did. If you put your hands like that for me. So this was his sort of body, his shoulder, his chest, or whatever. All I've done is that. If you soften your arms a little bit. So I went back instead of him going back. But, and maybe that happens to be fair. But the point is, I'm using, essentially, a strike with my shoulder, except it's already in contact. So if I had distance, it's actually, what I'm doing is, biomechanically, that, or maybe even one of those, but with my shoulder. That's what I'm doing. It's the same. You know, all I've done is cut my arm off. You know, if I got you to throw straight shots, or a lead hand strike, and then I chopped your arm off, but kept everything the same, and before you bleed out, do some more, then that's what it is. It's that, it's the same motion. And as such, it comes from here. In the same way that all good strikes come from inside, like, as my sword teacher says, like internal power, kihaku, they call it in Japanese, it comes from there. So I'm not pushing him with my shoulder, you know, I'm using this to move it back. It's the same mechanics as Bruce Lee's inch punch, where it's a 1 inch shoulder, yeah? So soften the arms a little bit. So this is me all clinched up, my arms, I can't get that through there. I open it up and the arm comes through. So if you clinch me up again, head's unavailable, yeah? So from here, it's too tight for me to get the arm through. Squeeze me up a bit more. There we go. And then I open it up. You know, it might not fly back that much, to be honest. And then my arm's here, and then I straighten out, and then we take it from there. Does that make sense to everybody? So one more time, let's do it on the other side. So I'm clinched up, his head is unavailable, and I want to get my arm through. I can't because he's squeezing too tight with his arms. So squeeze a little bit, there you go. And then from here, I use this bumping motion to sneak my arm through, and that. And don't fly back just because I do that, you know, like keep some resistance on.
Can you turn it around so your head is facing towards me?
Yeah.
No, stay where you were.
Yeah.
Should we stay where we were? Martin, bring your head onto his left shoulder. That's his right shoulder.
He's up on it.
Yeah, alright. Yeah, so from here.
Then you can see it.
Okay, cool. So what I'm doing is, and he's squeezing me quite tight, the head is unavailable, the knees weren't working, so maybe your legs are shifting out of the way, and I can't get the hand through there, so just that small motion, enough to get that through there.
You got that.
And in that case, I've got the whole arm out in that case. But play with it. So see how it looks. Your bear hug, let's just keep it simple and let's get both arms in the hug. Make sure your head is unavailable for a headbutt. And so from here, if Martin wanted to open up, yeah, there you go, good. But I would, I mean, say it's fine, but I just would have done the other one, personally.
Okay.
Just because of the leg position, but I mean, it doesn't matter. The point is, once you've got that, then you go into pom 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 pom. Yeah? So that's the first means of achieving the fending position from being clinched, is snaking. The hand comes up and then... So, and also experiment with it in stages. Don't turn it into a little, like, let's pretend to have a fight now. Just play with the stages. So the first, so clinch me up again. The first part is, so give me a squeeze a little bit. The first part is making the gap. And then the second part, once you're here, don't rush, take your time. Experiment with the difference between pushing away, I'm going to push in with my arm, versus I'm going to straighten my arm out. Yeah? Beams of chi. Cool, let's give that a go.